A little bit? A little better. Now? Let's see if we can do this.
First, try the mic a little lower on your, right now.
Like this?
Speak up.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So today I'll talk about the B&T's Reno yards. These were just south of the Truckee River here. All right. Special thanks to Mike Collins, Stephen Reid, and UNR. Mike and Stephen helped with a lot of the research, photographs, maps, things, and UNR also has a lot of especially good aerial photos of the area, as well as other photographs and things. Real helpful in putting this together. So Reno is a little town north of here. This here is where the yards used to be. There's been a little bit of work here in the last number of years. I don't know if they've actually built here yet. I know they keep talking about it. But it's been a vacant lot here for quite some time, since the 50s. Across from Bertha Miranda's, you know where that is. So a little background here. So Truckee Meadows, people started coming in the 50s. End of the 50s, 59, Charles Fuller builds a bridge across the river here, there. A couple years later, sells it to Myron Lake, who develops Lakes Crossing, which turns into a little bit of a village. Central Pacific comes through, building the Transcontinental Railroad in '68, and Reno is founded. By 1870, I think there's about 1,000 people living here. And it becomes a county seat in '71. And that is the time that the B&T decides to start building the Reno branch to connect the Transcontinental Railroad with their railroad that runs from Virginia City down to Carson. So 1871, they start their final survey, start laying tracks, build the bridge, Howe truss here, as well as the trestle across the lowlands here, and across the Mill Ditch and the Sullivan Ditch, going out to the Riverside Mill, which is just off screen up there. Put in the engine house, first engine house here, and the blacksmith shop. By the end of '71, they built all the way out to Steamboat and had the railroad running between Reno and Steamboat, and then they'd haul the freight overland up to Virginia City from Steamboat. So 1872, they decide to stop sharing the turntable with Central Pacific, just up over here, build their own turntable, and they get the tracks finished out to Carson. And you have the first passenger train is Reno and the Kimball cars. First two cars don't have their equestries yet. 1873, build a water tank, and pump house comes in here to pump water off of the Truckee. And what they're calling the wood siding here, off on the west side of the tracks here, goes in. The paper says that they get a bunch of rails to build 2,000-foot sidings. One of them, I think, is this one here. And then the other one is the long siding that Stevens drawn. Put an article together in the Telegraph a little bit ago. 1880, they go through, fill in the trestle here. Actually, first they go through and put stone abutments in here on the bridge, and around the bridge here, and around the Mill Ditch, and the Sullivan Ditch. And then once those are in, they go in and fill the trestle in, remove that, and do some major repair work on the bridge, replace the cords, which, you know, those are the big long beams that support the bridge, both on the bottom and the top. If you can imagine somebody hanging out there replacing the parts of the bridge, the main structural pieces of the bridge while it's built. The stone for these abutments here comes from the Central Pacific. They had quarried it, according to the paper, in '68 for a bridge over the Humboldt, I think it was. And for some reason or other, either they had leftover stone or they didn't build a bridge or whatever, but it had been sitting around for 12 years. So I'm sure the V&T got a good price on it. 1890. I'm not sure if the V&T got the lowest bidders on all their buildings, but many of the larger buildings by 1890 or so start having bracing holding them up. This one's no exception. But a number of the larger buildings in the Carson Yards, old engine house, some of the buildings up at Virginia City, they're all show up having bracing by now. 1894, they replaced the wooden bridge with a steel bridge here. And probably around now, the buildings go to a lighter red with a green roof. They started repainting those around 1890, in the 1890s, give or take. We don't have exact dates on these ones, so I don't know when exactly those were. Whether they were green actually by the time this bridge went in, or whether that went a little bit later. 1901, so here they buy the first 25, and the first 25 is 50 tons, right, which is about 12 tons heavier than the heavier moguls, fairly substantially heavier, and the turntable's not going to take the weight, so they add a fair amount of bracing to the turntable to support this larger engine. 1904, probably by now, we've got a shed here on the end of the engine house and the bunkhouse. Those show up in the 1904 Sanborn, but they don't show up in the 1890 bird's eye view. Sometime between now and then is when those went in. 1905, here we get the second number 25, which is a little bit longer and won't fit on these 50-foot A-frame tables. So they go through and they replace all their turntables that they're still using with second-hand tables that they get from various places. This one's a 57-foot table. Because it's bigger, it's got to move out a little bit from the tracks, and that forces them to move the engine house. When they move the engine house, they shorten it up a little bit. But it still has the back smoke jack here. And sometime around now, this siding goes away. It's in some of the photos that show up right after they moved this, and it doesn't show up in some of the others. I'm not entirely sure when that went out, but there are a number of photographs that show no siding here. 1909, they may have gone a little bit overboard in shortening the engine house, decided they needed something else. So did some major expansion here, or maybe they didn't. But there's a nice map at UNR that has this nice drawing, this nice 5-stall roundhouse, 5 tracks down here running out to the property line, all sorts of things here, right? But why would they do that? There's no traffic. All the Tonopah boom has been shunted down through Hazen by now. There's not a whole lot of traffic here. There's no real call to put a large yard in here. But the city of Reno is looking at extending 2nd Street here out, putting a crossing in here and a bridge and connecting up with Scott Street down here. And the V&T is not real in favor of that idea. By now they have the old Virginia Street bridge is in here connecting Rock Street And V&T says, just use this street here, use this bridge here. Of course, this neighborhood out here is a little bit of a lower rent neighborhood. And neighborhood down here is a little bit more up and coming, and they don't want to go across here. And besides, they can't put a streetcar across here, and they want to put a streetcar in. And so the city of Reno puts out bids to build the bridge and everything. Never mind that they haven't secured any of the right-of-ways or anything here. So they start suing for condemnation of the V&T land here that they're going to have to go through. And the V&T countersues and said, well, we're going to use this, so you owe us $112,000 for taking our land here that we've got all these big plans for, which they probably didn't. But so what really happens is eventually they settle their differences, put the crossing in on the condition that V&T will put in the gates and the guard tower, but the city of Reno is going to maintain them. The city of Reno is responsible for staffing the guard tower and maintaining the gates. And if anybody gets hit there, it's the city's fault, basically. Put in the bridge here, connect up the streets. Never do put in the streetcar line. Oh yes, and the oil shed here is probably in by now. That previous map at UNR shows the little oil shed here on the side of the engine house, the one that they're proposing replacing. And what they call now the new coach siding is back in here on the west end of the tracks. This bridge here gets partially covered by the fill for the road. There used to be a road going through the old slough here, and that more or less gets disused now. And then by 1916, coach track shortened. It's only 685 feet here. The back spoke jack's gone, the roof walk's gone. Engine house appears to at least have larger eaves now. In the 1905 photographs and things, there's not really anything in the way of eaves. But the evaluation survey, it shows, I don't know, about a foot eaves or so on the building by now. 1920, they repaint the yard buildings, probably go to red roofs now. And I think about 1912, they start repainting things with red roofs. So by the time they're repainting these ones, they probably get the red roofs. Uh, 1921, Kirk says that they should snazzy up the engine house a little bit. So they bevel the ends of the roofs here, put in a little bit of white trim here across the windows. It really doesn't show up very well, but makes that all nice and fancy. And then they repaint everything again. By 1928, the crossing gates here are gone. And the shack is gone. There are reports in the paper as early as 1911 complaining that there's nobody at the shack. It's locked. The gates have rusted in the open position. Nobody's paying attention. The city will be on the hook if somebody gets run over. But at least into the early 20s, the gates are still there, even if nobody's manning them. But by 28, they're gone out of the photo, and as well as the bridge here. This bridge has been taken out and just filled in. And the blacksmith shop is gone also by now. It was retired in 24, so sometime after that, they took it out. 1930, Sunshine Laundry opens up. So the V&T sells off this big chunk of their yard land they had such big hopes for. sell that off to the Sunshine Laundry that opens in March, I think, so. Maybe even started building in '29. They've been running for a couple weeks before they officially opened and train everybody up. But this is the large building you see in a lot of the backgrounds of the later shots of the yard. 37, not much going on still. But the white trim here on the engine house, a lot of that, especially the piece running across the top of the windows now that they put in 21 is red now.
Curtis,
Yeah,
was there any potential industry connection planned for the laundry building?
no, I don't think so.
No potential business there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
They had their own fleet of trucks that they did for local deliveries and everything.
I see, but no importing soap or supplies or anything like that?
I don't think so,
Okay.
but I don't know. Oh, and they've paved with asphalt by now instead of concrete. And by 48, we have second construction car 6 down here on the ground. There's another shed beside it. There's a little wood shed behind it, which you can't really see here. This car was taken out of service in 42, so sometime between 42 and 48 it was put on the ground here. And the engine house has a little door on the back now. And then, 1950, it all goes away. The engine house burns down, little shed up behind the construction car burns down, construction car is sold off. Thanksgiving Day flood takes out these two bridges here. This one was already partially dismantled by the scrappers. That's it. And now this whole area in here is just an empty lot with a couple streets in here now. This is the parking lot of the Auto Museum. They never did replace the bridge here. And so here we have some source images. This is out of the 1890 bird's eye view. There you go. So you can see the bracing here. And other thing to note here is that their couple is on the engine house early on. Like on some of the other buildings, the Virginia City roundhouse and the old engine house in the West Carson Yards both had cupolas similar to this. Of course, by the time we get actual photographs of it, when they're tearing it down and making it shorter, those have been replaced by smoke jacks. But you can see there's no shed here on the back, nothing on this side. Of course, they don't show the turntable either, so. But they do show the bracing here, so it's probably a safe bet that they didn't just forget about the other parts, maybe. Here's a shot of the filled-in trestle. This is a bit later. It has the steel bridge here. I think this is probably around 1905 or so from Stanley Palmer. This is the bridge here. There's a little road here that they goes through. When the B&T and Reno were fighting about putting the crossing in here, they were using the city was using this road to go through to start building the bridge. Yerington puts up a fence, starts filling it in, and essentially barricades it. So they go to court over that, over whether or not it's a real street or not. And while they're doing that, the city builds another road here out on the other side of the mill to get in and continue the bridge work. This is the 1904 Sanborn map. You can see here they show a shed here on the back, and they show the bunkhouse, which carries over into the shorter building. 1905, you can see the reinforced turntable here. There's some additional beams up here to strengthen it. That's what they did back in '01, I think, for the first 25. You can see the shed here on the back. Can't see the east side, unfortunately. We have the smoke jacks here, some water barrels. You see there aren't any eaves, there's no trim across the windows here. And there are still 2 tracks. Here's a back side, another one of Palmer's photos. You see there's no door back here. Like you see on some of the older photos. And this is, they've finished moving it, they finished putting it together, the back wall's up, but they've still left this smoke jack up here. Maybe so you could run the engine in head first. There's another one of Palmer's photos. See here, the turntable is off here to the side. It's still perfectly good. They just rebuilt it a couple years back. And so I think they put it here on the side. Steven says they were trying to farm it off, see if they could sell it to somebody. It's still usable shape. But I don't know if they ever sold it or not. A couple of aerial photos here. Mike found the entry in Kirk's notebook where he said, hey, let's go take the corner, the ends off the roof and make it look fancy. But before then, there were a series of aerial photos of Reno that I was using to try and date that, and had it down to about 1922. But you can see a shot here before they had trimmed that off. This is 2021. And then later you can see there's a definite cut here, and the trim shows up nicely. Put a lot of white on the building. And then here's another blurrier shot here. 37, so here, the trim here is red. Or the paint's all falling off, one or the other. But there's a little bit of white in here still. It's not nearly as much as previously. And, you know, if you want to super detail your models here, there's a little electric light hanging off. Let's see, 49, so here's the rear door. Not sure when that went in. There aren't a whole lot of photos of this side of the building. More on the other side, more than on the east side here. So you can kind of see the end of the bunkhouse here, the laundry building. Don't know about this car here. Stephen, you were saying that was
They did it for a
refueling?
fuel supply for a while.
You know if there was a separate track there, or if they just parked it there on the lead to the turntable?
I don't know.
And here's the construction car with the woodshed behind it. Yeah, fire in 50 that destroys the engine house in number 26. The one reasonable shot I've seen of the east side here after the fire, but halfway decent shot here of the bunkhouse, some windows, and even a little bit of the oil shed here, and privy in the bottom half. Still some, again, there's some bracing here on the side holding it up. Here's the bridge after the flood. They'd already taken a number of the supports out, so wasn't very strong when the flood came. The bridge right upstream, the old Virginia Street Bridge, I think that had more or less rotted through. It had been closed to traffic for a little while. Actually, through the years, it had been closed to traffic off and on for various problems. But I think they shut it down the last time in '49. Some of the support had rotted all the way through. So it probably didn't offer a whole lot of resistance to the flood. I think that's it. Any questions? It was a Virginia Street Bridge, went in 1876, I think. It replaced the wooden lake bridge. And then when they put in the concrete bridge over the Truckee there in Virginia, for Virginia Street in 1905, I think, they took the iron bridge off and set it aside. And then in, I think about '06, they planted it right there in Rock Street. For a couple years, I think they had right-of-way problems again, so they didn't connect it up to anything. Hadn't built the fills out to it. I think there were a couple of planks. You had to walk up the planks to the bridge to cross the bridge. But in '08, I think they finally got the right-of-way straightened out, connected up to 2nd Street here, put the fills in. But yeah, that was the Virginia Street Bridge, what, 2 bridges ago now?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be the right distance.
What's that?
It does not seem to be the right distance away from this property to be the.
It's not on Virginia Street anymore by this time.
It was called the Virginia Street Bridge before it was on Virginia Street.
It was on Virginia Street.
Actually,
Now, now it's on Virginia Street, up over here. Okay. And then in 1905, they take that bridge out and set it aside. They put the concrete bridge in because this bridge is kind of narrow. And then in about '06, they take that bridge that they took out and they move it down the river and put it here connecting up Rock Street.
So it's like the old Virginia.
The old Virginia Street Bridge.
Okay, now it's making more sense.
Once upon a time, it carried Virginia Street. I'm sorry.
Curtis?
Question back,
Go ahead.
I've been standing here for 27
Yeah,
years.
the 6 buildings that are along the side of the, other side of the track there, I'm sure you said what they were, but I just didn't hear it. What were those buildings for?
Which ones? Up here?
Yeah, right in there.
Various houses.
What?
Houses,
Oh, those are houses, okay.
yeah. It's a residential neighborhood.
They were, oh, okay, I thought it was part of the building.
The railroad fence line comes right across here. And so the railroad owns right-of-way about 50, excuse me, about 50 feet either side of the center line of the main line. And then they have a triangle of land that comes out here, just a little bit past here, and then along the residential neighborhood down here also.
Curtis, what's the little building across the fence from the water tank?
Another residence as far as I can tell.
Okay, not part of the B&T?
No, it's just on the other side of the fence from the V&T.
Yeah.
The B&T own that land?
No, the V&T owned up to right about here and back. They didn't own the waterfront other than the 50 feet on either side of the track, come through here.
You have any pictures of the blacksmith shop?
Pictures of the blacksmith shop. It shows up in some of the aerial photos, nothing really good.
Where's the auto collection?
Auto collection is right up about here. This here was paved over. This, I think, now it's Museum Drive instead of Rock Street. And so the parking lot is here, and it's just out of the camera up here. Sorry.
Can we go back to the picture of the engine burning? The engine house burning?
Sure.
Yeah, just as an aside, I was 14 years old when that burned down. The next day I went down and salvaged those classification lamps. I sat in my father's attic for about 25 years, but now they're on engine 25.
Okay.
I didn't get caught.
Yeah.
I confess.
Go back to the 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Back there, right there. All right, see here where the edge of the bridge comes down? You got the abutment, and then you got the cement. Yeah, when they put that in, they put, I think they put stone there instead of the cement. And they put that in later. And
Yeah,
that's what we were talking about. I'll go back and find that for you.
The original bridge, are you talking about the steel bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, the original truss here, back in this time frame, is on wood abutments.
Yeah.
And then they had replaced that with stone in 80.
Yeah, now go back to there, you'll see the stone there, and then you'll see the cement in front of that. That right there, yeah. So when they put that steel bridge in, there was wood down there, posts, apparently. So I'll have to dig that out for you.
Yeah, these I think are block, stone
Yeah,
block.
later, yeah, cement or whatever.
I don't know if this side is still there. For a while, there was an apartment building right here, and those were in the, they were in the foundation of the apartment building.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think when they put in the ballpark, I don't know if that stuff survived. The one on the one on this side is still there, I think, or it was a couple years ago. Most of it's there, I think. I think this part is here, but I think the wall behind is gone.
I'll dig that out.
Okay.
Curtis, you said that the trestle, the old original low trestle across
Yeah.
the flat was infilled by 1880.
In 1880.
Oh, in 1880.
In 1880, yeah. It was a CP superintendent that supervised the work. I don't know if he was working for the CP at the time or,
And is there any information on that original low trestle that was today's first news? I didn't know it was there.
There's an early photo from the First Depot Hotel in Reno, looking east,
Yeah.
where the tracks kind of curve off here. And right on this side, you can see the first couple spans of it.
It shows up in the Watkins.
Yeah, in the Watkins photo. It's fairly blurry and
Yeah.
not a whole lot of detail there, but you can see a little bit of it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thanks,